location, anywhere and everywhere, bringing the world into your home. Journey to Adventure, television's longest-running travel show, with your host and guide, Gunther Less.
Recently, I read the perfect description of our destination for today. Grandeur has been fundamental in its reputation. The grandeur of power in a city that not long ago holds the destinies of a quarter of the Earth's population. The grandeur of historical continuity, where monarch succeeds monarch. Parliament succeeds parliament in an apparently eternal progression. The grandeur of an aristocratic society whose style has been survived everything that war and radicalism could do to it. May I invite you to join us in London.
Heart of London is Buckingham Palace. It's the principal home of the sovereign, and has been so since the young Queen Victoria came to the throne. Although the palace looks like a great English country house, surrounded by trees and lawns, the life and bustle of the big city is close by. A military band heralds the morning ritual, the pageantry and excitement of the changing of the guard. London's great river, the Thames, has played a major part in its history. Downstream, it widens towards Greenwich, where lie the most easterly of the old Thames-side palaces. This superb group of buildings now houses the Royal Naval College, Maritime Museum, and the world-famous observatory. The intricate web of mast and rigging belongs to the Cutty Sark and is another link with Britain's maritime past. Now she's in dry dock, but 100 years ago she sailed the China seas, carrying great cargoes of tea. She was famous as the fastest clipper afloat, and once she sailed a record 363 miles in one day. Important and historic buildings line the banks of the Thames, as the river has always been a highway for London's commercial and pleasure craft. Upstream from Greenwich rise the massive walls of the ancient Tower of London. Close to this point of the river, 2,000 years ago, the Romans founded the walled city of Londinium. The tower, built 900 years after the Romans left, has been palace, royal mint, prison and fortress, and today houses the crown jewels. The White Tower is the most impressive of the group of buildings. Its 100-foot-high walls contain a chapel and a most amazing collection of armor and weapons. The guardians of the tower, the yeoman warders, resplendent in their red and gold Tudor uniforms, have an encyclopedic knowledge of its 1,000 years of history and tradition. Next to the tower lies St. St. Catherine's Dock. It was first developed about 800 years ago, and as the city grew and prospered, so the docks grew also. Its present wharves and graceful warehouses once held ivory, marble, exotic eastern spices, porcelain and wines. The docks have been transformed into a maritime museum and busy marina. Many of the old buildings now contain galleries, shops and restaurants. St. Catherine's Dock is a very pleasant place to pause for a while and look back at the past. Tower Bridge seems to symbolize London and dominates the river. Its massive twin towers of steel and stone complement the Tower of London close by. However, the bridge is not quite as ancient as it looks. It's a marvel of Victorian engineering. It was built for road traffic, but its centre opens to allow tall ships through. Just upriver from Tower Bridge is the famous square mile of the City of London, the business centre of the world. The city's most famous building is St. Paul's Cathedral, the Christopher Wren's great masterpiece. The first cathedral on this site was constructed only 600 years after the birth of Christ. The present building, designed after the Great Fire of London in 1666, took Wren 35 years to finish. It still dominates the city skyline. The Golden Cross and the Golden Ball surmount the perfect curve of the Great Dome. Inside, the immediate impression is of gold mosaic and glowing light. Sir Christopher Wren is buried in the nave beneath the dome. The cathedral has seen many momentous events. In this century, Sir Winston Churchill's funeral and a great royal wedding have taken place in it. This cathedral is a place of harmony and peace. The delicacy of the pale stonework and its classical proportions give a feeling of luminous space. Facing the square is the columned portico of the National Gallery. The Tate Gallery houses a rich collection of British contemporary art, while the National Gallery concentrates on the work of great European artists throughout the centuries. These masterpieces were painted by 18th and 19th century English artists. Is poised at the heart of London's West End, Piccadilly Circus. Bayswater Road hugs the northern edge of the dock, and in the leafy side roads close by are the small, comfortable family hotels which are typical of those found all over London. Each district of London has its famous shopping streets. Shops range from the small, smart boutiques and the hundreds of fascinating specialist shops to the great stores with household names. The tube train connections from every part of the city help to make year-round shopping easy and pleasant. away from the band, the dreamlike spires of Whitehall rise above the lake, a strangely exotic skyline for an English scene. In Kensington Gardens, the ornate structure of the Albert Memorial commemorates Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert. Facing it is the elegant oval amphitheatre of the Albert Hall, where the famous promenade concerts are held. In springtime, Regent's Park is an idyllic place of blossom and flowers. Beautifully landscaped, its lawns are bounded by lakes and fountains. A summertime open-air theatre and the zoological gardens make Regent's Park a fine place for a family outing. Lord Snowdon's soaring aviary is typical of the new style of zoo architecture. It allows the birds to move and nest freely in their natural surroundings. There are 6,000 animals here, mainly bred in the zoo itself. As well as its inner parks, the whole of London is ringed by an amazing number of green open spaces. With the Thames forming its northern boundary, the Royal Botanical Gardens at Kew are in 300 acres of expertly landscaped grounds. The curved glass and ironwork of the Great Palm House is a Victorian masterpiece. This is also a beautiful setting in which just to relax and enjoy a day away from the town. The Temperate House is a marvel of fine design by Decimus Burton, who was also the designer of the Palm House. Kew is a gardener's paradise. 45,000 species of plants are grown in its greenhouses and grounds. 18th century Kenwood House is on Hampstead Heath, London's largest open space. Elegantly placed in its rural parkland setting, the house is a museum and important art gallery. As evening comes to this great city, the pace of life alters. Theatres are crowded with audiences eager to see famous actors, the latest interpretation of a Shakespeare play, or the newest work of a modern playwright.
Today visited Europe's largest city. Neither Londoners nor visitors seem to pay enough attention to one of its most beautiful attractions, the River Thames. Next time you are in London, walk along the embankments and you will get the real feeling of this glorious city. I'm your host, Gunther Less. Thank you for joining me in London, and come with me on my next visit and my next journey to adventure.